Test one, Sue. One, Sue. Welcome. Let's talk about sharing or collaborating on a project in Traction Waveform. We'll cover a few different options here, from a quick copy of the recorded files to more complex techniques, or even sharing the whole project with people. Let's start with this project that I've already got some MIDI files in and some wave files in. I've created a layout for the song, some click tracks, some drums and some other guide tracks for people to use to record the real thing against. Because I'm going to be doing some, or could be doing some destructive things to the track, the first thing I'm going to do is jump back into the project, and I'm going to create a copy of this edit. And I'll call up my guide for export. Now we've got the copy of the project with MIDI files and recordings. I'll make a quick new recording on track 10. You can see a bit of input level. If I then hit record, it'll start playing the track, give me that click count in, and I'll get a new recording file. Now if I did a single take that I was happy with, and I just wanted to grab this file and share that track with someone, send it back to the person who had sent me this recording, I could jump into the project folder, I could click on recorded, and here's a file with the name Before the Throne Guide for Export, so you can see that I've got my edit name as part of the file name, and it's track 10, take 1. That's a WAV file, currently about 1 megabyte, but typically they'd be larger files like these ones, 20 megabytes, depending on the length of the song. And then I could just copy this file, right click and copy. I could paste it into a Dropbox folder. I could email that to someone, whatever's required for that file. That's the quickest way, just to grab a single take that you've recorded and send it off to someone. However, you may decide that this recording needed a bit of editing, or that you wanted to do multiple tracks, multiple takes, or record the song in multiple pieces. So let's say I needed a little bit in the intro, and then I needed to do a recording at this point. I'll hit record, and we'll start recording a new little piece that goes along to the music. I'll hit stop. Now I've got two pieces in the track. I've got two files that make up this track. If I open those Windows Explorer and have a look at those files, there's now 2 takes for track 10. I could just share those 2 files with someone, but then they would have to know exactly where to place those files within the song. Another option instead is to click on the track 10, click on render track, and render to a new track. That opens this dialog box. I'll make sure that I've set my sample rate to the project sample rate as required, and then I can click render. First of all, you can see that it's rendered a new track with a bit of audio here and a bit of audio here. And then in Windows Explorer, within my project folder, I can click on rendered and I can see a track 10 render file. Now that's a file that contains all the audio in the right spot, and it allows me to share that file with someone and they can just place it at the beginning of the recording. They don't have to try and piece bits together and figure out where they're supposed to sit in the song. Now that we've covered rendering some wave files, let's have a quick look at something like this keyboard lead part and this keyboard melody part. I might drag these, put them close together. And in this case, I've got some plugins running over these MIDI files that people on the other end won't necessarily have if I share just these MIDI files with them. So I'm first going to render both of these MIDI files as wave files so that it's not just the MIDI information, as in what note did I press and how hard did I press that note and at what time did I press it, but instead it's the actual sound that is being output by these plugins on the side. So I'll click render track again, and I'll click render to a new track, and the dialog box this time says I've got a wave file, I've set my sample rate, but I'm going to click here pass through plugins. Make sure that's selected, and that pass through plugins will process the audio through any plugins I have over the side. You can see as it's rendering this file that the audio indicator levels are moving around, indicating that it's actually pretending to play the file through those plugins. It's generating the real audio from those, and once that render is done, it'll allow me, or I can click render now, but once that render is finished, it will generate a new track. Here's our new track. It's got the audio in the same place as that MIDI file, but if I grab a section here and solo the MIDI, I'll play that couple of bars, or I can solo the wave file, play the same couple of bars. I get the same audio. I get the same audio while playing that, but it's now exported or rendered as a wave file. You can see this new file in a Windows Explorer. I can share that file with someone and they won't need the extra plugins to get the same audio output that I was getting on my computer. There may be cases though where you actually want to just give them a whole MIDI file so that they can use the plugins on their computer. It's possible that you'll have a situation where everyone's using the same plugins, or it's also possible that you didn't necessarily like the sound you had and someone else has bigger sound libraries or better audio hardware and is able to generate those files. I'll click on render track down the bottom here. Currently it's disabled because I've actually got the channel muted. So unmute the channel. If the channel's muted, it's not going to export any audio. In this case, I'll click render MIDI to a new track. And to get the MIDI, we don't want to pass it through the plugins. We just want to render the MIDI file itself. You can see it's got a MID extension to the file name. The format is MIDI file. I'll click render, and now you can see the new track has been rendered. However, the Traction's got a little warning saying there's no plugins on this track and it won't make any noise. That's alright. All we're interested in is opening up Windows Explorer, and now we've got the melody, rather than rendered as a WAV file, it's now been rendered as a MIDI file, and that MIDI file could be shared with someone. All this, though, assumes that you're sharing these files with someone who isn't running Traction already. You can share the files a lot easier if people are running Traction. I'll just jump back to the project here, and I can click on my project edit, and then I can click archive edit, and I can name the file. In this case it's been given a long name. I can shorten that down, and then I can click create archive, and you'll see Traction exporting that archive. This exported archive is then a single file saved in the location you chose that contains all the information that someone needs to import that into their computer. If someone receives that file, they then need to click on import material and click unpack an archive and add it to this project. That's going to then allow them to select the archived track, and when they open that, it will import the archive into their edit window. I can't import that archive that I just exported. Instead, I'll import another archive that I've created earlier. Traction will unpack that archive, and then I will get a new edit in my project that allows me to see the file that someone has sent to me. That allows you to share a whole edit with someone else. It relies on that other person having the same plugins that you have. If you wanted to, if there were plugins that you knew they didn't have, like this keyboard track, you could render the track to a WAV file and then delete the other two files the other two tracks, and then share the file, and it will be just WAV files in the recording without the other person needing the plugins. That covers off sharing or collaborating on projects in Traction. Obviously, you can send them an archive, they can do their edits, they can send an archive file back to you, or they can send just the track that they've added back to you, and you can import that track into your file. I'll just cover off quickly how you would use some individual WAV files or MIDI files that someone has sent you. It's pretty easy. You would find the files that they've sent you. You would create a track or have a track already prepared to import that file into, and then you just drag the file from Windows Explorer into Traction, and there you have a file or a new track with the file that someone has shared with you. Let's cover off one more piece, which is exporting the whole recording. This allows you to export the file, including any sounds or effects, as a single file so that someone could just use that mixdown of the track to record something to in another application or on a phone or other devices. For this, I'll mute all these additional bits that I added in so that I've just got the tracks that I want to hear in the final recording. I'm leaving my click track in. The main reason for this click track is for exporting the file in situations like this where you can't use the built-in click track because Traction won't export that built-in click track in the audio. And we'll just play a bit of it. We know that file is now sounding the way we want the exported file to sound. And I should mention as well that I've been using the expanded toolbar the whole time, which is accessed by this little up arrow here. While you're dealing with these track edits and that sort of thing, it's a lot easier to use the expanded toolbar than to be clicking the menu or the tools option each time. I'll click export and I'll render this to a file. You can also see that there's the create archive of this edit option within that export, which I accessed through the projects menu there. It'll ask me now for a name for the exported file. That can be saved wherever you want to save the export. In this case, it's going to the exported folder within that project. Make sure that the format is as you want. In this case, I'll use a WAV file, but you can use other file formats. And make sure that all the other settings are as you want. The remove silence at start and end can be helpful if you've got a bit of silence at the end of the track. You'll see that as I'm looking at it, the options, it's already rendering the file down the bottom to save me time. But if I change any of these options, it'll start that process again. If you wanted to, you can render just a little bit of the file by marking the regions, but typically we just want to export the whole file. And once that's done, or once you've set the options correctly, then click render. That file is then exported, and then you can share that file with people so that they can play that file on any device, be that a phone or another computer, another digital audio workstation, bit of software, and then they can record against that file that you've sent them. I'm hoping this allows you to collaborate on projects easily and make music together. Thanks for watching.